You're listening to a podcast from thespoilist.com. Welcome to First Contact, the Star Trek The Next Generation intro cast. Two people have seen Star Trek The Next Generation before, but one of us hasn't. What's gonna happen? Who can tell? Anything can happen. We're here at First Contact on thespoilist.com. I'm Andrew.
I'm James.
And I'm Alex.
This week we have watched Who Watches the Watchers? There's a lot of watches in it there, folks. It was written by Richard Manning and Hans Beimler and directed by Robert Weimer. It first aired the week of October 16th, 1989. James, what happened in this one, mate?
Mate? You've gone absolutely mental.
Just trying to generate a bit of energy, get the old radio brains working.
Coming up in half an hour, your choice of hits. But first of all, Sally tells us why she's afraid of goats.
Jim, just tell us what happens in the episode. we're really struggling to talk about Star Trek these days. It's almost like we don't care anymore. Just say what happens and let's go through the motions like we do all the time. Sorry for trying. I'm really sorry. I mean, we didn't want to do this podcast, and now it's already taken us 3 years to get here. And I mean, where does it end? Where does it end? We're not even halfway through yet. Oh my god. I just don't know what went wrong with my life. Used to have a radio show, you know. Used to love doing that. Now this? Is this what we're reduced to? What happens in Who Watches the Watchers? Just tell me.
The Enterprise is on course to deliver some supplies.
Oh, you're going to tell me? Oh. After that. Oh, that's fine then. Yeah, you just go ahead. You go ahead with your synopsis. I'm going.
If he's gone, that means we can finally do the Star Cops intro cast.
We'll need some higher power to bring him back. We'll need to summon the Picard. Or that godlike alien from The Survivors.
Or the space face. Could we pray to a horse?
I know there's Norse gods, but there's not horse gods, are there?
I'm sure there's a horse god.
Is that a god that is a horse, or a god of horses?
Well, I was thinking more of the sort of centaur variety.
But a centaur isn't a horse.
It's a horseman. A man-horse.
Okay, have you got a synopsis, James? We need to get on with this.
The Enterprise is on course to deliver some supplies to a remote outpost who are spying on a proto-vulcan settlement. Everything goes wrong, though, and there are explosions, and some of the indigenous population witness the advanced technology and believe Picard to be a god, potentially changing their entire belief system. Can Picard fix the potential damage done to this society by breaking the Prime Directive even more than they already have? Probably, and also Riker and Troy get to dress up, so that's nice.
Well, James and I have both seen this episode before, many, many times. Frittering away the long and lonely hours, just to drown out the voices inside your head, telling you that it's not worthwhile anymore. Ooh, but spaceships! Anyway, Alex, what did you think of this one?
I thought it was very good.
That is right.
No, it was. It was. I don't know. Was it possibly the best we've had? Yeah, I'd go out on a limb and say it probably is the best one we've had so far.
Really?
Yes.
It's better than Measure of a Man.
I felt more involved in this one. Although it's fairly straightforward, I felt there were a few just little extra turns. And there was marginally less stuff that made me go, what the hell? Apart from one thing at the end, but we'll come to that.
I think in my mind, this is perhaps the most Star Trek-y Star Trek episode of them all. It just has everything that I think defines Star Trek. It has big prime directive, philosophical debate, people doing reasonably stupid things, sort of proto-civilization. You have filming in the desert, which is just absolutely a Star Trek thing. This is the sort of thing Star Trek does really well, and it's the sort of thing Star Trek should be doing, essentially.
It's dealing with big ideas. And in this one, Star Trek is often dealing with the Prime Directive, but it dealt with it in an interesting way, with dealing with the idea of the development of a race. I thought it was good. There wasn't anything that made me particularly think, well, this is a good episode, but it's a shame about that. I thought it was good. I thought it was well acted. I thought the guest cast was good.
I think what really helps this episode is they've actually thought through the Prime Directive, unlike what seems like every single episode before this when they've mentioned the Prime Directive, and you're kind of thinking to yourself, why does that apply here?
Yeah, that's exactly it. The Prime Directive up until this point on TNG has been horrifically handled, and to the point where it doesn't really make any sense. Think back to Angel 1, everybody.
Must we?
No, don't do that, in fact. Ignore everything that has come up to this point.
Think back to Justice.
Oh. But here they absolutely have a handle on it, and they have worked out how to tell an interesting story based around a fairly simple premise. And they make it clear exactly why the Prime Directive is so important in the Star Trek universe.
There are times when I kind of feel the Prime Directive should be broken. I don't think it should be a hard and fast law, but they make the case for it in this episode with this particular civilization. They clearly and concisely explain why what they have done is a very bad thing and why they need to fix it.
I thought they still did a reasonably good job of bending the rules on things, like Crusher giving the medical aid and whatnot, and Picard picking her up on it and her saying, well, it's a bit late now.
Yeah. Can we talk a bit about this outpost? They're on Mintaka 3, and they're going to help this outpost with a new power unit, and they're using basically holograms, a holodeck to hide out in the rocks high above the village. Do you think that's a good idea? Obviously it serves as the catalyst for the story, but you sort of think, could they not just do that from orbit on a space station or something like that? What are the practicalities in living in the rocks?
I tell you, it sounds like the sort of thing that might end up, if it all went tits up, the sort of thing that might lead to an insurrection.
Is that Starfleet being a little bit smug and presumptuous and stupid? Should they even be on the planet if the Prime Directive is so important?
No, they shouldn't, but we wouldn't have an episode if they weren't there.
That's an excellent point.
I mean, I get it. The whole idea is a scientific study. I can go with it for that, to be honest. It seems like a justifiable enough reason.
But everything seems to go wrong. This sort of stuff never ever goes right.
Well, no, because there are adventures we don't see where everything goes perfectly.
That is true.
Well, number one, the ambassador's dinner went very well. I know. Imagine what would have happened if you'd have spilt the soup and accidentally dissolved the delegate. Yes, that would have been quite the hilarious jape. Maybe Wesley would have lost his jumper. Yeah, I don't think it would have fitted into the story. No, but it might have made a humorous little side plot.
And hey, we have locations 2 weeks running. Who would have thought that? We've never had that in Star Trek The Next Generation yet. It has been so much corridor. It's almost like they finished paying off the special effects budget from the first season.
And yet, we go back to the fact that the first episode, the episode they specifically chose to air first, was the one which had no expansive sets, no location filming. It was all just on existing sets with one guest actor.
It is strange because you said when we watched the Ensigns of Command that basically that was a statement of intent and should have aired first when it aired second. This as well, I think, is a proper statement of intent. Exactly what Star Trek The Next Generation can and should be doing.
But even The Survivors, as very little happened in that episode, but it would have been a better opener just because it's a bit more expansive. It looks more expensive. It shows that the show is not going to be like season 1 and 2, whereas you don't really get that with the opening episode.
I think what we conclude from this is we like more sets.
It just makes it far more visually interesting. Different actors, different locations, hell, even different costumes help add texture to the world and make it not seem like it's just 9 people walking around the same 3 sets, except for engineering, because nobody ever seems to go to engineering.
Yeah, Geordie doesn't seem to spend much time down there anymore.
No.
He's a lame duck engineer.
Maybe he doesn't know the way and he's too afraid to ask.
They haven't put in that knobbly pavement yet. So he doesn't know when to stop at the doorway. So
yeah, the usual, and I hesitate to use the phrase, mind rape of wiping someone's memories after they've seen something. And Crusher, they mentioned Pulaski. I didn't realise they mentioned Pulaski. Crusher says, "Oh, I'm familiar with Pulaski's techniques," when, she wiped the mind of a little girl not so long ago. But Crusher obviously does not have the mad skills and is unable to wipe the mind of what is essentially a Vulcan. Can anyone explain the proto-Vulcan society to me? Is it just convergent evolution? Is it in the same part of space? Common ancestry?
I thought it was leftover ears in makeup. Right.
It's almost like we know how to do this makeup.
I thought it was kind of along the same lines as the Romulans. An early civilization left Vulcan, and these have sprung up from those people.
That could well be the case. It really doesn't matter, and it doesn't detract from the episode in any way. So it's all fine.
Yep.
In order to prevent the spread of this almost new religion from Lyko, played by Ray Wise, Picard sends Riker and Troy down. They get done up in the makeup, surgically altered, I think, to look like these Vulcanesques, and they go and try and be really convincing, and that works out incredibly well.
I got flashbacks to Beyond a Joke, where in Red Dwarf, people dressed up as a Gelf.
Right. I'm gonna say this. This is not going to be the last time that crew members dress up as aliens of other races.
I mean, is this the Trek equivalent of blacking up? Because, it kind of seems a bit like blacking up.
I would disagree, I think. They are an alien race, and they are dressing up to blend in with their alien race. I think it's painting it in a very sinister light to compare it with blacking up, which was racist satire.
The unfortunate truth is that the Star Trek equivalent of blacking up is actually blacking up.
That's true, actually. I'd forgotten about that. Good point, well made.
Wait till we get to the episode where Riker and Troy have to blend in with the alien race from Code of Honor.
Oh, God.
I think it's essentially, it's a technique that Starfleet deploy in order to blend in with other civilizations and races, sometimes when they're undercover. Who would have thought that on the diplomacy side that Troy, who doesn't actually do anything when she goes down to the planet, she basically sits there.
Oh no! Occasionally, she goes, uh-huh, uh-uh, uh-huh, uh-uh.
I would love it if it just cut to two of the Vulcans at the side looking over to her and just going, why is she going to herself? That's a bit strange, isn't it?
If they can put the communicators inside their head, why don't they just all have that anyway?
Well, I mean, would you?
No, I don't think I'd like that very much. Just like I wouldn't like Troy reading my mind all the time.
To be fair, she just reads emotions.
And to be fair, most of the time she can't read anyone's mind anyway. I'm sensing feelings.
Oh.
Incidentally, why do Troy and Riker never do their mind communication thing anymore? It would have been useful in this episode.
It would have been, but it's almost like that was something they did in the first episode, and then everybody else decided that was a bad idea.
I mean, yes, it was terrible.
But they've set it up now. They need to keep using it. Just like...
What, like that the Enterprise splits in two anytime there's a battle situation?
Yeah, which is exactly the point I was going to bring up. Or the fact that there's families on board. We keep seeing those, don't we?
No.
We haven't seen any children since the puppies, have we? The puppies were the last time we saw any kids. I'm not suggesting they've been eaten by dogs, but I am suggesting they've been eaten by dogs.
The dogs grew up and got revenge.
No. That seems fair enough. And then they get chucked on the warp core anyway.
Oh, well fed.
I suppose we forgot the major plot point. Palmer, the man down on the planet who gets found as proof of something that Picard can perhaps send a message down, but they don't know. And isn't that the point, that religion can be interpreted in so many ways by so many people, and there's actually no way to ever know what any god wants? Is this quite critical of religion as a whole, this episode?
Actually, yes, I did find that quite surprising. I especially in an American TV show, I'm so much more used to sort of quite a pro-religion message that this sort of caught me off guard a bit. It is quite critical of theology, isn't it?
It does basically say, see, when you're making something up, there are just so many ways to make something up, and you'll never actually be able to satisfy your God, because you just won't know because you don't have any proof, so maybe just don't bother.
But then he'll send more lightning to you.
You might believe that your God is a Frenchman, when actually he's from Yorkshire, and as such he's a false god.
It does take that path, whereas this society can go one of two ways. It can either follow logic, or it can follow religion. Maybe that's just the way we're reading it, but it does appear to be rather highly critical of organised religion, I would say.
I'm fine with it. I was just surprised that it was there more than anything else.
I suppose that does fit in with the world of Star Trek, though, which is fairly godless, unless you're watching Star Trek 5. And even then, that's just a big giant head.
The only person in that film who believes they're God is William Shatner.
All godlike things end up just being aliens in the Star Trek universe. And in the original series, they tended to say, "Oh, is this God?" And then it turns out to be an alien. In The Next Generation, they say, Is this a godlike alien? Yes, it is.
There's so many of them. Do you think they have conventions?
What a god convention.
Yeah, it's just, how are you messing with the humans? Oh, I just hang around a planet pretending to be a human for hundreds of years and then wipe out entire races. Oh, I just turn up and put them on trial for stuff.
Yeah, but the only problem with godlike conventions is there's always a massive queue.
Oh, very good. Oh, you've won the podcast.
You walk away with this charming trophy.
So what do you think of Picard's ultimate solution, which is to bring Nuria, the leader of the people, onto the ship and tell her the truth about everything? Is that a good idea? Breaking the Prime Directive even more, but it's more like, yeah, I'm not gonna lie to these people now. It's too far gone. We just need to explain stuff to them.
Well, in for a penny, in for a pound. Yeah, actually, from a story point of view, I quite liked it, and I especially liked it because you had that subversion of expectation slightly later, where you think he's finally gotten through to her, and then she turns around and says, "Oh, great, yeah, no, I understand, yeah, bring that to life." That was unexpected in a nice way.
But then, luckily, somebody's dying in sickbay at that very moment. So Picard's able to just go, Crusher, could you maybe let me know when someone's just about to pop their clogs in sickbay, and I'll just pop in. I just want to prove to someone about death. Okay?
They were actually perfectly healthy. It's just that Picard's point was going south a bit. So he just, called down and said, Doctor, could you just push it along a little bit? I suggest the hammers.
To be fair, he's breaking the Prime Directive to repair the damage already created by breaking the Prime Directive accidentally. I think overall he's more upholding the Prime Directive in the long term.
I suppose it shows exactly what kind of captain he is. Let's contrast that to, say, the opening of Star Trek Into Darkness, where they really know how to write the Prime Directive. And indeed, aliens do end up worshipping the Enterprise, which has unnecessarily been part in the ocean of the planet.
We were quite positive on that film when we did our review at the time, weren't we?
We were very positive, but I feel that
time has jaded.
Let's talk a bit about Picard going down to the planet then. Do you think that was the right direction to go after the leader had seen everything? Did anyone else need to see more?
Yes, I thought that was the logical conclusion. I kind of expected it to go to that earlier. The thing that surprised me was that Ray Weiss shot him in the heart, and then in the next scene, well, I'm fine.
It's a robot heart.
He was still shot in the heart. He bled.
I don't think he was really shot in the heart. I think it was more the shoulder, was it not?
It looked a bit like the shoulder to me.
Either way, it was a sort of very sudden, he's been shot. It's quite bad. Oh no, he's fine.
Which leaves me to think, will those people still think of him as a god when they've left?
No.
Really? I think that they'll see him magically disappear, and they're just supposed to think, oh, okay, he was a normal man. He can disappear into thin air.
Are you suggesting that there's some correlation between Patrick Stewart and Jesus?
For these people, perhaps.
Okay.
That's perfectly understandable.
I mean, it's not that it's a bad resolution, because it's such a complex issue. It's tough to have an issue which wraps it up very nicely. And in that sense, I'm actually happy they don't wrap it up in a nice bow and have all of the people going, oh, well, that Picard was just a load of rubbish, wasn't it? They leave it open to interpretation.
I think actually it's paced quite nicely. I think there have been a couple of episodes this season where the conclusion has seemed a bit rushed, and I think last week was somewhat guilty of that. You never really got to fully explore the issue.
This does speed to a very sudden end there after Picard's shot. There's no time to turn back to the inhabitants going, oh wow, he really wasn't a god. Oh well, lads, I guess it's back to Mormonism.
Well, that's my point, really, because I think in season 1 and 2, they would have had the inhabitants speaking about this, and we would have known for certain what happens. As it stands, we need to fill in the gaps, and I prefer that.
Yeah, I mean, it's a pretty strong episode. It all hangs together, and we all liked it. So we're sorry if that's the sort of thing that you don't want to hear if you listen to this podcast. But
if we hit a bad episode again, we'll get back to talking about horses and everything will be fine.
When?
So, yeah. Overall, good.
It was a good.
Quickfire.
Lyko was played by Ray Wise, who you might know as Leland Palmer from Twin Peaks, or from so many things. He's been all over the place.
Yeah, his next major TV role would definitely see him in a very different father-daughter relationship.
So we have them communicating with this team who are in trouble and could be discovered by the inhabitants. So they say, let's speed to warp 7. And it's only when there's a major malfunction that they suddenly say, warp 9. They know this team are in trouble, yet they can't go straight to warp 9. It's not like there's some universal speed limit. That's not until season 7.
It does seem a bit odd, but maybe they're trying to make the point that it's really hard to go to warp 9.
Which I don't buy. They can easily go to warp 9. When there is some trouble brewing, they should go to warp 9 straight away.
Yes. What was going on wrong with the outpost anyway? Did we know?
They left a light on. The Nitpicker's Guide for Next Generation Trekkers complains about the fact that Picard is in a sling and then isn't in a sling. But it's actually so dull, I can't even be bothered to read it for humour's sake. We finally reached the point where the book has broken me.
Sling that book away.
So the tapestry that was given to Picard by the villagers, that's seen in his quarters in many more episodes, which is exciting, and the first 3 TNG films. So there you go. The location filming was the Vasquez Rocks, which was used in the original series for Arena, Friday's Child, Shore Leave, and Alternative Factor. Good old rocks. The original UK VHS release.
Oh god, it's gotten that bad.
Was volume 26, 21st of October 1991.
Some top class trivia.
I'm sure you used to get the serial number of the VHS in Memory Alpha. You don't seem to have it here.
Flicking to one of our other standard books, Captain's Logs, The Complete Trek Voyages. It's not The Complete Trek Voyages. It doesn't cover everything by any extreme measure, meaning that they had to make a second edition, which we've bought, which is of no use to any of us because it's not going to cover anything we're on for some time. The bit of trivia that this book decides to proffer upon us is this quote from Jonathan Frakes. "We did Henry VIII in New York."
What?
Thanks, Frakesy.
These books are of no use to us. And that brings us all to a satisfying climax. Would you like a cigarette? We'll be back next time talking about the bonding. But for now, goodbye.
Goodbye.
Goodbye. I've done a search for horse gods, and Epona is the Gallo-Roman religion god, protector of horses, donkeys, and mules.
But that's just rubbish. Have one for each individual animal. Don't have a blanket god.
She was particularly a goddess of fertility, as shown by her attributes of a patera, ears of grain, and the presence of foals. Oh, I can't read my contacts today. In some sculptures. She and her horses may also have been leaders of the souls.
I miss Maurice Hurley.